This just ain't no regular podcast. This is Westchester Talks.
What's up, everybody? Y'all now tuned into Westchester Talks, and this is episode 5. I'm your host, PJ, and today we got a very, 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 very special guest with us, who I'm gonna save for last on the introduction. But of course, to my right, he's back today, my brother Fred.
What's good, my guy? How you doing?
And to my far left, got my brother Lex. What's up, brother? And here at Westchester Talks, you know we all about the culture. When it comes to sports, music, fashion, anything entertainment, we talk about it. So just to get right into it, I'm gonna bring out my phone for this one because it's a special guest, so I gotta make sure I do the introduction right and read off some facts about this gentleman right next to us. So, sports reporter since 1998, went to WCC. At the time, had a part-time job at the Journal News, earned a degree at Fordham University. Afterwards, had positions with Low HUD, MSG Varsity, News 12 Varsity. Currently holds the position as Senior Vice President of Digital Media at Local Live. He is the co-founder and owner of Game Day One, a husband, a father of 3, one of Westchester's very own, Kevin Devaney Jr.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that was good.
Welcome,
I like that intro.
Yes, well deserved.
Good,
you know, so
I have some more to add later.
But for sure. And I was definitely gonna say like anything that was on it that was wrong, or you want to add
some big breaking news we got here.
For sure. So
before we start, Fred, you back?
Yeah, man. You know I'm back, man. I was on a little hiatus and all of that. You know,
they were looking for you.
Yo, listen, man. You know, besides people looking for me and the Knicks winning, it was a good combination. I had to go, man. But I'm back though.
We glad to have you back. So I say let's get into it. We did some research and checked some facts. The only thing I couldn't find, which we were all interested in, is what high school did you go to? Did you go to high school in Westchester?
I did. I went to Eastchester High School.
High School.
I played football and baseball. I was not much of an athlete. I love basketball. I love going to games. But when I was in high school, I played sports, but I was so into high school sports in high school to the point where I was the kid that would leave school every day, like around lunchtime, and I would go buy lunch and I'd buy the newspaper. And I used to open up the newspaper in the cafeteria and just like read it. And I was the only one that knew names of players from places outside of like Eastchester, Tuckahoe, Bronxville, Ardsley, like our neighboring towns. I knew who the quarterback was at Carmel and stuff. And people were like, why do you care? And I was just like, I don't know. I just do. I'm interested in it. You know, I like professional college sports, but I was into high school sports. I never thought about a career, but I was just like really into it, basketball, everything. So it's just crazy to think back. People that knew me in high school were probably like, yeah, he still was reading the newspaper back then. And then I was writing for it like months later.
Did you have like someone in your family that introduced you to like sports or that made you interested in covering sports?
No, my father wouldn't have known LeBron James if he came into our house and sat down. Like he would no idea who he was. He somewhat followed the Yankees. He was born here, but his father was born in Ireland. My father started a business when he was 20 years old, or 26 years old, as a limousine driver. He had my oldest sister has cerebral palsy, severe, so like he had to take care of her and my other sister, and then me when I came along, and he had no time for sports, no interest in it, and I just like grew up looking for something. I had family that was in, like my cousin Scott played quarterback at Iona Prep. So that was the first time I ever experienced. I was like, wow, high school is pretty, I know. High school sports is kind of a cool thing because he's like a star. Like he's like on the cover of the newspaper. He's about 8 years older than me. So the first time I got to see it, and I was like, that's pretty cool. I knew all about Nourish Iona Prep. Thanksgiving Day. Like that football game was huge. And I just sort of kind of grew that. And to this day, my dad, when he passed away last year, he still like, he would read my articles and he would check it out, but he had no interest in it, which is crazy. Nobody else.
So would you say that those moments were the defining moments where you said to yourself as a kid, okay, you know what? I may not be into sports as a player, but everything surrounding sports I'm into. Yeah,
I enjoyed, even at a young age, I enjoyed listening to announcers, what they would say. When I grew up, I used to, like, when I'm old. So not a lot of games weren't on TV. So you could either watch the Mets, the Yankees, or the Atlanta Braves were on TBS. And I used to listen to these announcers, and I don't know, I just like kind of absorbed it and was like, this is pretty interesting, hearing information about players from outside of this area, outside of the New York area. And it's just something that I just kind of always stuck with me. I love broadcasting, but at no point did I say, oh, I want to work in sports. even when I started working in sports, I still tried to go in different directions. I went to Fordham, and everyone says, oh, you went to Fordham journalism. Like, not really. I went to Fordham to go to the business school, and I graduated from the business school. I had no plans of staying in journalism. I was working at the newspaper all 4 years of college, 5 years of college, 4.5 years of college. And I worked at the Journal News. I would go to the school at either WCC or when I was down at Fordham, drive to White Plains every day to go answer the phone and take, information from coaches and type it up and put it in the newspaper the next day. And I still said, well, I want to make a lot of money. I'm never going to be able to do it as a sports writer. Just not going to happen. And then somewhere like in my final semester in college, I was like, screw this. I don't have any interest in this, in business, working in finance. I want to work in sports. Like, why not? The quality of life and just the love of what I was doing was growing so much that it kind of surpassed my desire to make money, a lot of money.
Yeah. No, and that's dope. And I think for us, like, first, like, hearing about you, and me and Fred spoke about it off camera, like us in high school in our era, like with the low HUDs, the MSG varsity, News 12 varsity, definitely we're gonna ask, how did you get into that? But for us, just to give you a little bit of flowers, which we're gonna do the whole episode of the course, it's like for us coming into the gym, especially in high school and stuff, it's like, I know me specifically, I'm even killed, it don't look like it, but like I'm low key like, all right, what's Kevin? Kevin's here at this game, is he here at this game? Is MSG varsity?
I saw it.
Kev's here? I know what I gotta do today,
Well,
so it gave me the extra.
I love covering you, and I want to just say that. I love covering a lot of players, but you specifically, because I just like kind of felt like you just might do anything, right? You might score 40, you might punch someone in the face. Like, you might yell at your coach. You might throw down a dunk over two guys. Like, you can do anything, and that's what I kind of like. I watch a lot of great players, and I love greatness, and I love watching teams win, and teams like I like watching all of it, right? But then as part of it, it's just like you can go to 100 basketball games, and they not that they're ever the same, but you kind of get players who you say like, oh, this guy's fun. I like that. I like watching this. Like you won a game. I don't know, your junior or senior year. One of the teams from the city, was it St. Ray's? Who came up to New Rochelle High School?
St. Ray's, Wings, and I think those are the
you
main
won
ones.
one, and you had a huge game.
St. Ray's.
St. Ray's. I knew it was St. Ray's. I should have said it. So St. Ray's comes. You had a huge game, and you won. I interviewed you afterwards, and I was like, this is a great story. Like, I watch teams win and lose every day. But when it's a team like New Rochelle and you with all the expectations on your shoulder to win a game like that, that was a great story. Like, I walked out of there, it wasn't just like a regular game, So
yeah, I know, because you guys didn't come to our game, and we beat Mount Vernon that day too. So
why would I? I don't know why I would have chosen New Rochelle. But I went to my fair share.
No one expected that. We beat Mount Vernon.
I went to my fair share of Mount Vernon White Plains games. And it took me a long time with Spencer Mayfield, your coach, right? I started covering basketball in 2000, really. That was my first year. They were just coming off state championships at White Plains. Here comes me. I felt like I was the black cat for White Plains basketball forever because Mount Vernon won every championship after that. And I was like, man, so I felt like Coach Mayfield, like, who I loved and respected and grew up. Again, I read the newspaper. This coach at White Plains comes in and turns him into the state championship program, and such like admiration for this guy. And I don't think he liked me. And I was like, every time I interview him was after a loss. And I would never be there when they beat everybody else, but like they played Mount Vernon, I was there, and they lose, and it was tough. So then I miss a game like that.
So you might be right. You might
have been a black cat situation.
So I probably was a black cat.
And so let's talk about those times. Since we're here, let's talk about how was it like with specifically, let's say MSG varsity, because like I said, that's our era. That's when that was our ESPN. Like when we see them banners on the side, like, oh, this is MSG. This gonna
How did it
MSG.
start? We want to know that. How did you have? Like, did they reach out and you created it with who else?
Mike Quick.
Mike Quick.
It's interesting. So I started in 1998 as a sports writer, as a part-time sports writer. And then I started working my way up. When I say working my way up, I worked from doing high school golf and tennis to covering high school basketball in like 2000, 2001. And then there was a progression, right? Everyone's like, oh, you're gonna work your way up, and then you're gonna do some colleges, and then you're gonna get you're gonna cover one of the professional sports teams. And like in the mid 2000s, 2003, I worked at the Journal News with a guy named Ian Rappaport. If you know Rap Sheet from NFL Network, big name, right?
Yeah.
We were close friends. And we were both part-time. And there was an opportunity to be a full-time staff writer for the Journal News, which didn't come very often. And it came down to me and him for the job. And they told us in the interview, they told separately, and they said, no, they brought us together. And they said, okay, whoever gets the job is going to be our #1 high school sports reporter, and with a track to becoming a pro sports writer. And then whoever doesn't get the job, we're going to recommend for a job covering Mississippi State football and basketball in Mississippi. And I was like, there ain't no way I'm going to do that.
Everybody go
No
to
chance.
Mississippi.
And so Ian and I walked out. I'm like, Ian, what do you think? He's like, I don't know. It's like, both sound great. I was like, I can't do Mississippi.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I would do that. I would do that in a second. He's like, I don't have my family's here, but I would move. I would do that. So we go through the process. They offer me the job, and then he goes to Mississippi.
Wow.
And so he goes to Mississippi and becomes Mississippi beat reporter. Then he gets hired by Alabama, he got hired to cover Alabama football. Then he goes and he works NFL Network, and he's got this great life. I wouldn't trade it for a second. Yeah. And I'm not just saying that because I get the job as the #1 guy at the Journal News, which, some people might be like, why would you want that? I was covering a lot of pro sports and high school sports at the same time. And I could do anything, cover any Derek Jeter or whatever. And I felt like nobody gave it. Like nobody cared.
No connection.
But when you go to a high school game, players recognize when you're there. They wanted you there. And part of me was like, I feel like this is drawing me in more, right? So I was like, I want to do this. I want to work in high school sports. I don't really have an interest in the pro stuff. And then I meet Mike Quick, who was telling me about MSG Varsity, how they're starting this 24-hour high school sports network, and we're gonna cover it like ESPN for high schools. And I was like, sounds great. So they go, and he says, we have a job, but you're not going to be on camera. You're just going to be a writer. So I was like, okay, fine. So I go to the interview, and Mike coaches me up. He's like, here's what you have to say, whatever. And the boss says, we don't need anybody on TV. We have plenty of people that are going to be on camera doing this stuff. And I was like, okay. And all I thought to myself was, I'm going to get my ass on TV. That's it. I'm going to be on. I'm going to be a broadcast, whatever. And within I got the job, and within like a month, within maybe a week, I was doing like broadcasts. I was doing TV stuff. But I didn't get to do my first real broadcast until Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, and the Shop, which was kind of crazy. My first game that I ever did. That's tough. But that's how it all started. So MSG Varsity was kind of started. It was crazy. You guys played at like maybe the best time.
Yeah, I think
in terms
so.
of
We
like
always say
TV
that,
and broadcast and stuff like that.
I think during that time, especially, I tell the kids all the time, that's when also social media started to kind of arise as well.
Yeah.
Instagram had just came out, things of that nature. Facebook was still around. There was different outlets for us as well, where we would post and say, oh, I'm playing on MSG Varsity this day. Watch it at this time and things like that. So I think
Twitter
definitely.
too.
Twitter
was
was
like the biggest
Twitter.
thing, and like I said, we kind of sent it in our group chat earlier yesterday or today of like tweets when you're tweeting out our names and stuff, and it was like that's what we wanted to see. It was like, oh, he tweets how many points you have. Kevin Devaney tweets this about you. Like, that's what drove us as kids. So,
and did you feel like, I know you mentioned like I felt like the kids was looking for. Did you like really feel it to how we viewed you as like you said it was going to be ran like ESPN, which it was. It was top 10 plays of the week and
dunks of
I did, and I felt like a responsibility, right, with that. Like I felt like the first thing I felt was I can't just cover Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, White Plains, right? Got to do Woodlands every once in a while. We got to do all the schools. We got to give everybody more like love.
Sometimes,
yeah. I felt like that, and I felt like it was like. In the newspaper, you had space. Like you were told your article's got to be like this long, as many words or whatever. And in social media, I could do whatever I wanted. I could write for days. And I felt like every time I had a chance to write something like positive, I should do it because it like mattered to people. I could write about Derek Jeter. He didn't care. He didn't read it. So I felt like that was like important to me. And I also knew that that's how you win people over. Like they'll like you if you do that. And I never went and. I did an article early on in my days about Peekskill High School basketball. They won a playoff game on Friday, and they were going to have 5 kids suspended for academics on Monday. And they were allowed to play on Friday, but suspended on Monday. And I wrote an article about it because someone gave me a tip. And I was like, well, I'm a newspaper reporter. I'm 23 years old at the time. I have to do this. Like Mookie Jones was I think Mookie Jones was an 8th grader. So he was actually one of the kids, academically ineligible, couldn't play in the next round. So I write this story and I publish it, and the editor was like, great job, anonymous source, cited the whole thing. And I felt like crap for days. I was just like, why do I, this is what a reporter's supposed to do? I don't want to do it. And so I just kind of just shied away from it. I was like, this is high school sports. Like, this is your experience. You're not professionals, right? If guys were arrested in pro and they couldn't play, that's worthy of news. But none of the other stuff was really worth it. And so when I went to MSU varsity, they were like, we don't want anything negative. We don't do negative. No coach firings, nothing like that. Okay. So it was great. I loved it. And I've kind of kept the same way since.
Yeah. That's dope. So what was your first game that you ever wrote for, covered? First game? I know you said the shot was the first you was on.
It's the first game I ever broadcast.
But the first game you ever covered?
First game I ever covered was in 1998. I covered a football game, Stepanak for St. Joseph by the Sea. And I get the assignment. Now, I had my sister's boyfriend at the time worked at the Journal News, and he was like, we need stat people. We need people to go to games and do stats. So they said, okay. He's like, why don't you do that? $50, they'll pay you to go do stats on a Saturday. I was like, I could do that. I was at WCC. So I go to the game, I get there, and I'm like, I don't know who the reporter is. I'm looking around, there's no reporter, and so I call. There was no cell phones in 1998. I didn't know that. So I had to go to the office. I had to go on a payphone and call the office. They're like, no, you're the reporter. You're doing this. I was like, oh crap. So game goes on, wild finish. It was like the last second field goal that went up, and they said one referee said it was good, one referee said it wasn't good. Wow. Both teams celebrate, mayhem, chaos. And here comes the referees get together. They say no good. Stepanak loses. I go back to the office. I'm like, you're not gonna believe this. This is the craziest thing ever. I tell them the story, and they're like, so just write that. Yeah. So I'm like, all right. So I write the story, and the article was terrible, terrible. To the point where they were like, no, your last paragraph is about the field goal. That should be the first paragraph. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that, So the guy said to me, gave me the greatest advice ever. He says, just tell us what happened the way you write the way it happened. Right. And I was like, that's it. That's all I have to do. Just don't screw up a good story, right? Just tell it, the way you would tell, in your own voice. So I did it, and it got published, and I was like, this is what I want to do. This is it. And it's so funny that my first basketball game that I ever was allowed to broadcast was a basket that both teams thought got them the win, and they both ran the court, and it was like history. It was meant to be.
That was crazy.
And that was after maybe 2 years of MSU varsity and News 12 let me do anything I wanted except be a broadcaster. And they said, we can't let you be an announcer because you never played basketball. You never played high school basketball, college basketball, none of it. They only wanted coaches and former players on.
That's insane, because now if you look on TV,
I know, it's
a bunch of guys that never played, football guys and lacrosse guys that announced the NBA.
So you have to just know. Crazy. So they let me on because they said, these teams, so we'll let you talk about the players. You can just talk about the players and you'll be fine. And then here comes this iconic moment of Never Shall Win.
For sure. And to speaking about your first game, and we talking about 98 no phones and talking about different eras, let's talk a little bit about what's some of the key because we spoke about it on our past episode of how we feel like this new era may be a little more soft or catered to and stuff like that. What do you think as far as let's just call it our era, so say 2009, 2012 to now 2021 to 2025-ish, what you think is the biggest differences or some similarities? Let's just speak on.
So for the everyday basketball player, which I would say you guys are not. You guys were not. You guys were elite level basketball players, right? It's hard. It's way harder now, first of all, to be a high school kid than it was even 20 years ago, for all the distractions, all the reasoning. But being a basketball player now is so hard because it is not just your gain, it's somebody else's gain of your success, right? So it's very easy to get for people to get in someone's ear. You see it at Stepanak, I'm sure. Somebody gets in someone's ear and tells them that there's money over there. If you go over there, there's money over there. And I'll pull you in this direction. And it's hard if you're not guided at home and you don't have, or guided on your with the coaching staff. You're going to be pulled. Kids getting pulled in such different directions now. The boarding schools, the city schools. It's so hard now. It's hard to know who to trust. That's the hardest part. And then there's the basketball part. So, a place like this didn't exist back back when you guys played. Nope. There's more training. There's more coaching. There's more one-on-one. There's more specials. I think basketball players are like a little bit more skilled in a lot of ways now than maybe they were. Your day, you just be bigger, stronger, tougher, you know, and just be mentally tougher. Now you got to have a certain level of skills to play at the highest levels. I look at Stepanak. Like, I think about Stepanak basketball from the first. If Stepanak's team in 1998 played the team today, I mean, they'd stop the game after the first quarter. And there were some good players back then, but it's a totally different animal now than it was then. So I think that era to now is different. But there's a lot of players now that they went and tried to play against one of you guys. They get their ass kicked, physically. Like it's a different style of game. And then the other part too is like Section 1. I love Section 1 basketball. I love it, but it's not what it was when you guys played. The best players are either in the Catholic League or they're someplace where you don't even know where they are. They're playing up in Massachusetts, New Hampshire boarding school or something.
Yeah, and that's what we spoke about too.
Yeah.
We said that back then, like when we talked about, just not to kind of bring him back up, but like a Tony Taylor, like he was kind of like the only person that was really in the Catholic school at that time, especially during that era. And I think that's like the golden era of Westchester basketball with the Tony Taylors, the Sean Kilpatrick, Kevin Jones, Mookie Jones, that core of that group. But
Tony Taylor's funny because Tony Taylor had one of the best individual performances ever. He scored 50-something points at the county center. And it was unbelievable, and it was great because a lot of people don't get to see Stepanak. At that time, they didn't see Stepanak as much. There was no live streams. You'd have to go to the crowded gyms to see them. But here's the thing people don't talk about. They lost that game that he scored 56 points. They lost to Briarcliff High School, and it was the 7th place game of the slam dunk.
I didn't even know that.
So it was a 9 a.m. game, 7th place game. They were 0-2. Both teams were 0-2, and Briarcliff beat them.
Was that Kyle Beacham in them?
Yes, Kyle Beacham, Joe Lombardi, and Alex Galata. Those three guys.
Kyle Beacham.
Yeah, and they beat Tony Taylor and Stepanak, and Tim Phillip was the coach. And I remember writing the article. I was like, I think my first line was the greatest 7th place game ever played. Because it's true. It had to be. I don't know if it was true, but it had to be. But he was incredible. But just think about how far Stepanak's come since then. And Tony, especially. Tony could play on any Stepanak team of the last 20 years.
Of course.
But that just shows you how much the league and I mean, Iona Prep lose to Somers like 10 years ago. That wouldn't happen now. Iona Prep's not losing to Somers now, you know, so it's changed a lot.
Definitely changed a lot. And so I definitely didn't know.
So let's jump right into it.
Okay.
Who's your starting 5?
All right, so remind me the rules.
Okay. The rules for you is going to be who you saw.
This is basically
wow.
Same rules. So basically the rules was they had to play in Westchester, like high school basketball in Westchester. You had to physically see them play.
Okay.
I would say those are the main.
And like impact.
It could be impact for your career or impact for your vision.
I thought about this a lot. So I'm gonna give you 6. So
that's fine. First guy, not to cut you straight high school. So not
no, exactly. So that's like my things that like. Someone could say, oh, Ty Jerome. Ty Jerome is playing for the Cavaliers. He's going to make a lot of money. He didn't play his junior year. He got hurt. He didn't play his senior year. Like, he was hurt. You can't, like his high school career, like you knew he was talented. Yeah. But like, and Matt Ryan, same deal. Like they didn't get to play. They were hurt. So I'm going to give you one like curveball, my 6th man. And I had to include this guy because, and there's a story reason why. So Tucker Hall won the state championship. Sky Williams. You guys know Sky Williams?
Yep.
So now I'm going to include Sky Williams for one reason. He was an extremely talented player, but they went into the senior year of his high school and said, we're going to win the state championship. We're undefeated win the state championship. And that's a lot of pressure on one guy, and he did it. And I give him all the credit in the world, and I respect him so much because he worked so hard. He's my 6th man.
They might bomb you for that because I don't think the public probably know who Sky Williams is.
No, that's why I had to dig a little deep on one guy.
Yeah, that's
my guy.
Don't bomb
it's true. To say we're gonna win the state championship.
It was like a lot of pressure.
And
I interviewed him all throughout the year, and he would talk about winning a state. And he did it to himself, but people around Tucker Hall was like, "This is a state championship," and I'm like, I hate that talk. I used to talk to all the time in the preseason, like, "Oh, they're gonna Mount Vernon win the state championship." Like, I don't do it anymore. It's just too much pressure on a 17-year-old kid. But it was like his maturity and his team's maturity. I was like, at the end when they did it, they won. I was like, damn, like that is impressive that you guys did. You won undefeated and you won the state championship. So I'm gonna give Sky some love. One of my favorite players that I ever covered was Michael Coburn. From Mount Vernon. And the reason why I just ran into him 2 weeks ago. I ran him at the Stepanak event. he was a 7th grader on Mount Vernon basketball, which is unheard of. Like there's not a 7th grader anywhere right now that I feel like could play on Mount Vernon basketball. Like to do that, his mental game was unmatched. I mean, in terms of, and what I loved about him is this is what I realized early. It was like he is the most coachable player I think I've ever seen. Right, the kid who absorbed his coach. He didn't do something without looking at his coach, his head coach. Now, obviously, Bob Cimino's a legend, so you want to listen to him. But like, I just said, man, if I could even like raise my own kid to be a 10th of coachability as Michael Coburn, and now I'm not surprised. He's becoming he's going to be a great coach. So he's one. My other favorite player that I ever covered was John Mitchell. And Jonathan Mitchell.
Jay Mitch.
So Jay Mitch was awesome, and he's obviously went on to have. He won a national championship in Florida, but he was a bench player. But I respected Jay Mitch because he got completely like just crushed his junior year by New Rochelle, by Ray Rice and Jeff McDermott. That team, and it wasn't just like they beat them and they won the championship. They were in his ear. They were dogging. I mean, to the point where I thought he was going to cry. Like he had never like had, it was nonstop. And Ray Rice was a badass, man. On the basketball court, I think he knew he wasn't like a great player, but he was going to rough people up. And he was tough. I mean, you couldn't go into the lane. It looks like
he just fouled people.
Yeah, and he didn't care. You know, he tried fouling Paul Harris in the state championship game. Paul Harris went on to play at Syracuse. He was built like a man, like I never seen before. He tried to foul him hard, didn't make a dent, did nothing. I think he made an N1, and that was like, all right, if Ray can't foul this guy, no one can. But Jonathan Mitchell comes back his senior year, and he wins the Federation. They beat Lincoln in the final. He beat Lance Stevenson in the final, and he was so good every big game. So that's my another guy. The guy who, again, like I'm saying, my favorite player. Joe Clark, to me, was such, like I say about you, like comment I give you, I love going to watch Joe Clark because you never knew what was going to happen. And I know Khalil Edney gets all the credit for the half-court shot to win, but Joe Clark had, that game was the greatest performance I've ever seen by a player in a big game, in a championship game. So for what Joe Clark did to, like, they were dead. Their game was over. We were like, we were filling the time. And I go back and watch the New Rochelle Mount Vernon game every once in a while, maybe like once a year. And I listen to myself basically saying like, hey, don't turn off your TVs because like this, you don't know what might happen here. And so Joe Clark just like willed them back into that game. And so he's got to be on my list. Next guy, Eric Pascal. I think raw talent. Now the only thing about Eric that I almost didn't include him because he didn't play his senior year.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, like that's kind of like a little, that's why I was almost 6. Because he was so good. His talent was off the charts. He was not blessed with a great group around him and carried that team. And I love watching him play. He was phenomenal. And then I'm going to think about my last guy. My last guy was R.J. Davis. R.J. Davis was such a phenomenal competitor. Like so the Long Island Lutheran game, were you part of something like that?
No, I wasn't.
So they go up to Glens Falls to play Long Island Lutheran in the Federation semifinals. Now the funny thing is that MSG Varsity News 12 had shut down, like closed the doors. I didn't have a job, right? So I was there on my own dime. And I was like, let me just go. And I didn't want to stop doing what I was doing because I felt like even if I'm not getting paid to do it, I want to go. And so I went to the state championships that year and I went to the federations. So I go up and follow Stepanak and I'm like, oh, they're going to get killed by Lehigh. They've got Corbello. They have all these studs.
Zed Key.
Yeah, Zed Key, yeah. So they're going to get killed. But I want to be there and follow it. And R.J. Davis was so unbelievable in that game. And he got fouled at the end and went to the line. He was a freshman. Like, he's not making these. He's not making. There's no way he's making these, right? And he just made every free throw he needed to make at the end of the game. And I've never can remember seeing somebody that young be that unfazed by the moment. And it was incredible to watch. And so he's like kind of forever in my book of being one of the greats. So I'm not going to include Ben. I didn't really watch Ben Gordon play. Mookie Jones was in that mix too as a high school player. I didn't like the way his career ended, but I could give you like a list of 20 guys.
Yeah. Right. No, that's a good list because like I said, you have a mix. Yeah. You have a mix of guys from what Coburn was 07
07
to literally 2020.
Yeah. And Boogie's close. My problem with players and analyzing careers is like I like to take like 3 or 4 years beyond to like reflect then. Because if you do it too close, like Boogie just played, like raw talent, like I don't know, man. Like he in 3 or 4 years, I might be like he might be the best player I ever covered. But he also played in Westchester, but really he lives in the Bronx. So that's why I didn't feel like I had to push him in.
No.
Like I said, that's a great list. Like Mike Colburn, Jay Mitch.
Yeah, Jeff McDermott was another one that was right there.
Sky Williams was a sleeper for me.
Yeah, I had to give you one that was like a small school.
That was a sleeper for me. Shout out Coach Keith Wright from Hamilton. I'm sorry what he used to do to y'all. I apologize. But Sky Williams, definitely, he was, he was the same year as me. So, Sky Williams was one of those guys where it was like almost like a urban myth in a sense because you were just hearing about Tucker, they beating everyone, no one's beating them. Sky Williams is always in the newspaper. When we used to go check for our stats, it's always trumped by Sky Williams. Sky Williams had 30, 40, things like that. So, Sky Williams is a sleeper, but I respect that.
Yeah, he's good. That's he's my sixth man. So he obviously didn't play big time college or anything. But I said, let me just think about high school career guys.
Exactly. And that, like they said, that's definitely a dope list. We agree with all the names on there. Like me personally, I didn't know of Sky Williams. Like I heard of him. Obviously, you're gonna hear about somebody doing what he's doing in high school. So I heard of him, but definitely a dope list.
Well, when you play large school, you don't think about the small. Like you think you're like, oh, let me go play Tuckahoe. Give me a uniform. I go play. I'll drop 40. You probably would have. But
and being like said to his point of like it's different eras on there. I think one of the questions I had for you mainly too that I wanted to ask was like, what would you say is your favorite era? Like, do you enjoy this era more? Did you enjoy our era, maybe the era before with the Jonathan Mitchells? Like, which era did you feel like you enjoyed?
So the era that I loved was right before you guys. That was the best. It was the Mookie Jones, because at one point I was doing the Journal News All-Star team every year. And we had a team. It was like Melquan Bolding. And he made second team. I think when he was at Stepinac. Kevin Jones, Mookie Jones, Sean Kilpatrick, Michael Coburn, John DeMitch. I was like, how do you like? And I actually was saying this to him, like, we need more spaces. Like, we need more guys. And they're like, no, we got to keep it. This is how we've done it for 50 years. No more than 5. And then I actually got them to say, it used to be 5, including Player of the Year. So I got them to agree to do Player of the Year plus 5, so I got 6. But even that never felt like enough. But that year when they had, because all those guys played together at AAU, Sean Kilpatrick, Mookie Jones, and Kevin Jones. That was a special time. He won a lot of state championships. So I felt like that era was where I kind of also like made a name for myself because I felt like I was covering all these big guys going off to college. Everyone was going to a big school.
Had Jordan Henriquez,
and so like Portchester loses by like 50 points in the section championship to Peekskill, and Peekskill doesn't play a close game. Like Portchester was the second best team in the state, definitely. Greg Avila, and Muhammad Lowe, and Lariz, like all these players, and Peekskill like killed them in the final, and then they go on and kill everybody in the state. So the state was also really good because you had like all the guys that went to Syracuse, like Brandon Trish, Paul Harris, Niagara. So like the state was excellent. It's just different now. But that was like the late 2000s was probably my favorite.
For sure.
Got a question. Just who would you say was the most decorated? I won't say decorated because I don't want to put like stats and stuff, but the support system of their town. Like what player had the best support system of their town? Because I got names that I can say. But
I'm curious to see because I want to think about that one because Mount Vernon at its peak was pretty special. Like good times and bad was pretty special. It was hard to match what they did. Then you look at you go over the bridge, you look at Tappan Zee. Like Tappan Zee basketball now, it's unbelievable like what they've done in terms of just like the kids in the town like truly look up to and worship like the varsity basketball players. The issue though, what happens with these towns is like it all goes through the same thing, right? So they build the program up and then they win and then kind of like it's hard to sustain it and then people start expecting things and or they like there'll be players that think, well, I'm bigger and better. Like this is my thing with Stepinac. I think about Stepinac and I'm like, you guys are on a high, right? On an absolute high. But at some point, like it's gonna be hard to kind of keep that. How do you keep growing, like without saying, all right, we're gonna leave the Catholic League and become a national program and join, be like Lehigh and stuff like that. Can you sustain that over time? So it's hard. It's one of the hardest things. It's not nearly as hard to gain success, that I've learned, as it is to sustain success. Sustaining success is incredibly impossible.
So 2-part.
Okay.
Who's the most, I guess, celebrated player from their town? Like when
Whose identity?
Like when they play,
Yeah.
Who had the most star power?
is behind them.
Mookie Jones was up there. I think is like a guy who kids love, man. There's been a lot of players over the time that I've seen like sign autographs. Like I might go to the girls' side and say Sanaya Chong. Sanaya Chong was like unbelievable, like the phenomenon that she was. She's like a little bit like a mini Westchester's Caitlin Clark. Where like no one cared about girls basketball ever. Like no one ever talked about it.
When she played,
do you guys know that county? They didn't used to not have basketball at the county center for girls until 2000. Like the girls basketball was like, you're gonna go play at Dutchess County. The boys are gonna play at the county center, and it was never even discussed.
Wow.
And then they fought for that, and then they did it. And then here comes Sanaya Chong, and people were like started to come to watch girls basketball. She kind of made one of the biggest impacts. Who do you say?
For girls, I'll say Sanaya Chong.
Yeah.
For boys, I would have to say between, I think, Jabari and Daquan Brickhouse.
Daquan Brickhouse is another one. He's another one of my favorite guys. He kind of was like the belief that like he's not a big guy, you know. So here comes this little guy, and he's driving at Jordan Enriquez, throwing up floaters over his head, and you're like, listen, don't back down. Peak skill. You're a small town in northern Westchester. You don't back down from anybody. And Daquan Brickhouse is like the epitome of that. And I always loved watching him for that reason. And he was into the drama. He had some theatrics in his career, but at the county center, he was on a table being like bandaged up, and he pushed the trainer away and ran on the court and came and played.
Yeah, we talked about that.
It almost was like someone told him about Willis Reed the day before. He's like, I'm gonna do that. Like that's kind of what it was like.
And like the gym went crazy, right?
The place went nuts.
I remember I told you.
So that's
memory of elephant.
That's
You
definitely
know what? I have one, right?
Okay.
When we was in high school, and this is like totally off the wall. No one will probably ever see this coming. Remember Luke Houston?
Yeah, from Pearl River. Yeah. So,
and I'm gonna tell you why, because when you brought up Tappan Z, and I thought about Over the Bridge and how they view their basketball, I thought immediately of Luke Houston because that's the name I always saw. And then when we scrimmaged them right before the playoffs. Yeah. And even then, people were still filling up the gym for a scrimmage to see Luke Houston. I know. And I was like, Luke Houston's one of those guys. For the girls, though, it's funny. I'm going to keep it Greenberg and Woodlands. Portia Postel,
of course,
Portia
and Tisha Hyman was another one, I think, talking about town, like Irvington with the girls basketball as well. They're all about their girls basketball, you know? But being the identity of the town it's something that's pretty special. So like, I
think that's what we're missing now.
Yeah.
Like the identity of a town. Obviously we got like Rye football, Patterson football. Those will always be, close area. Those will always have like a crazy fan base.
This is what we talked about, I think maybe episode 1, where I said, when we were in high school, especially the public schools in Section 1, you at least had one guy on each team. Yeah. Like what we said, when we were in high school, White Plains was good. On a random Saturday, they'll beat Mount Vernon. Mount Vernon is good. PJ and New Rochelle was good. Woodlands, we were good. Peekskill was good. Shane Carter and them. It was different teams where at least you had one guy. Yeah. Nowadays, like you said, it's so kids are in the NEPSAC, kids are in the Catholic League, kids are totally just moving in different states.
I think that's what's taken away from Section 1 is that the talent isn't staying home. And the town doesn't have anything to support. Like I'll say like a Scarsdale had
Jake
Sussberg now, like they were really behind him because, he kind of developed after the year and kind of grew that. But other teams, they're like their best players, like you said, leave. And I think that's what we're missing. We don't have no feel of like Section 1 Westchester basketball on the men's side.
What do you consider? Do you consider yourself a Section 1 guy or a Catholic guy now?
Oh, I'm Section 1.
Yeah?
Okay. Basketball, I mean, Section 1 because I played. Yeah. And I think I played in a great era where it's like you wanted to play for your home, your school. You didn't want to go to Catholic school. I had friends that went to Stepping Out for football, basketball, but that's not what we wanted because we wanted to play with our friends. Yeah. We wanted, the community to come out, your neighborhood to come out. Now, I mean, I'm glad I coach at Stepinac.
You have the best. You have great talent. I mean,
Exactly.
Like Rashad James would have probably went to Stepinac, or SK would have went to Stepinac.
Right now, definitely.
Yeah. So Rashad is another one that like I thought about because I loved watching him dunk. It was unlike I don't think I've seen anyone since then. No. Not in Section 1. Definitely.
Especially when he would get a fast break, how the whole gym would stand up.
Yeah.
Like that was insane. Like it was like in unison. As soon as he gets that little steal, the whole gym is getting up, waiting because he's taking off from the foul line.
And I played with Davon Henry from Woodland.
Of course, another one.
And he's a high flyer, but Rashad to me is still another level. That's another level of high flying.
He was definitely different. And so let's speak on some memories of. Some memories of us that you may remember.
Okay.
Let's talk about maybe a game or a story or two, maybe from watching Lex play, me play, Fred play. And then if you need some help, we got some tweets we could bring up.
All right, okay, good.
All right, man. You just want him to, say
man. Well,
come on, man. I don't got no dunks, man.
Fred, you played on the Woodlands team. You won the chip over Pleasantville?
No. I came the year after. I was at Rice.
Oh, you were at Rice. So you came back the year after that.
Yep.
When they started losing.
And you had Davon Henry the year after, right? Okay. They started losing. tough.
Never.
So, those teams, like, basically, it was like you either had a matchup for Fred or you lose. That was it. Like, who could bang inside? Like, no one in your level, which was good because that was the year that coach decided to play like a lot of bigger schools to kind of challenge you. Did when you came back, was that something
we played Fox Lane when they had Will Treywick. And Dylan Peretz.
It was the only school with transfers.
Yeah, those. That's funny. R.P. Tony Lopez. That was there. We played peak scale 2 times a year, and even in our league at that time, we had from Hastings. The big guy from Hastings, he was in the NFL.
He made the Hall of Fame. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yes.
Ali Marpet.
Ali Marpet,
Ali Marpet could.
We would battle. Yeah. But Fox Lane was the one because we played that game on MSG Varsity.
Yeah, I remember. I want to find that game.
We beat them. We beat them on MSG Varsity. That was my favorite game ever.
Okay.
But most definitely, that I would say Davon Henry, that crew that won the championship. They set the table for me and Reese Williams and all of us when we came up right after.
So I got a question for you. When you were on that team, there was a lot of chatter. We talked about he brought up the transfer thing. Did you guys hear that stuff? And how did you guys because I never would not that I had to have the courage, but I would never go to the players and be like, hey, you must hear all this hate. Like because people that blog and stuff like that.
So when I first transferred from Rice,
there you go.
Yeah. I'm a Greenberg kid initially. I moved down south, came back, lived in Castle Hill in the Bronx, went to Rice High School. Rice High School was about to shut down. I got wind of it. I said, Ma, we got to make moves now. I was going to go to Wings Academy.
Okay.
But then my mom didn't like how we had to walk through the metal detectors and stuff. So I said, Mom, Woodlands. She said, you're not going back to Greenberg. Okay. We're not going back to Greenberg. Because all my friends were here. She thought I wasn't going to be focused. Lo and behold, like I said, R.P. Tony Lopez, he's coaching Woodlands in the summer league for Bob Murphy. And that's when he convinced my mom, y'all need to move back.
Yeah.
Fred needs to come back. And that's what happened. So when I came back, first article that comes out, I'll never forget this, is Woodlands transfers, right? And it was on Lowhide. And they were saying in the comments, oh yeah, Fred is living in Tony Lopez's basement.
Did you?
No.
I'm glad I know that now.
It was. I heard it was nice. I wanted to, but I heard it was nice. I wanted to, but we heard. So like I said, when my first game that I was able to play, because I think back then the Catholic rule was you had to sit out. Yeah. So I had to sit out the first 2 games. My first varsity game ever is peak scale at peak scale.
Oh. Okay.
So as soon as I get off the bus and I walk in the gym, yo, you the dude that went to Rice? Yeah, we gonna see if you good right now. So So, but like I said, the guys before, they set the table for good things.
Yeah.
And they set the table for bad things as well.
And so the transfer thing, I tell people all the time, you can go to any high school you want. don't let anyone ever tell you because, this kid transferred in, whatever. If you, as long as you're going there legally, you should go to any high school you want. I'm a parent. I'm going to send my kid wherever the damn I want to send them, If I want to send them to a private school, public school, like this idea that public schools have like some like ownership of you grew up in New Rochelle, like you can only go to New Rochelle, and if you don't, like who the hell are you to tell me anything? So I don't like that, but you're at Greenberg, you go to Greenberg, don't worry about it. Don't feel bad now.
Kev, they followed me home after school and everything.
Did they? Oh, I'm sure they did.
I'm so serious. There was people following me off the bus, things like that after school. It was crazy, but it was
you play White Plains. Yep. Do you still remember what zipper means? Like the play zipper?
Yep.
Yeah.
Zipper,
okay.
yep.
So that's funny. I didn't know. I sit next to Coach Mayfield, and like when I was working at the newspaper then, I used to like pull up the chair. Like I sit anywhere I damn wanted. Now I sit in the crowd like a normal person, but I was young, so I was like an ego. So I put that on the court. I'm like, I got to be close, So I sit next to Mayfield, and he was sitting up in like the first minute of the game and goes, zipper, zipper. Yep. And the play goes, and then like we'll call zipper again. I'm like, Coach, I think they know the play. I think they know zipper. Like so it became like an ongoing joke with me and him. But you guys went your senior year to Poughkeepsie.
Yes, we did.
And lost. With two future pros. Guy playing with SK.
No. That was 2 years before me.
Oh, 2 years before, yeah.
Before we lost.
They lost it. Yeah, that was the game.
Then I went back. Same result.
It's unbelievable. Poughkeepsie is the hardest place to go play. I mean, I do all the seeds and stuff, and like teams like don't want to play in Poughkeepsie. I'm always like, you'll be fine. And then when they say you gotta play Poughkeepsie, I'm like, no, you're not gonna be fine. You're in big trouble. There's something goes on in that gym that you can't play with. So your era was a great era, White Plains. Were you on the team with? You guys talk about Rashawn Johnson last?
Yeah, no, I wasn't on. That was me. It was me, PJ. That year, 2011.
So I think about this all the time. So Rashawn Johnson, when you guys brought him up on the podcast a few weeks ago, about him and the player he was, and he said the impact he had on you. Yeah. So one thing that I always admired was that Rashawn Johnson, at home, White Plains against Mount Vernon, he got fouled.
Yeah, I know the story.
With like under a second left, down. I think he got fouled shooting a 3. Mm-hmm. And he had to make all 3 to force overtime. And he went to the line. He made the first 2. They called timeout. Yep. Came out. He missed the 3rd, and they lost. It was over. And the gym was like crazy. And man, I remember thinking to myself, like, I would not want to be this kid. Mm-hmm. I would not want to be him. And he handled it so well. And like his father, I knew his father, and he handled it well. Like they kind of had their head up, and I was like, this is why you play, man. You don't sink your head. This is, it was a great. I kind of like had a lot of respect for him because he came out the next game and he was great. So I always think about that.
Yeah, that was a crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy
so
time.
that was a good era, White Plains, and then obviously I covered this guy a lot. I think the St. Ray's game was a highlight. Watching that. You and Antoine won at Mount Vernon, and you ended like a long streak where no Section 1 team had beat Mount Vernon in Mount Vernon. And I remember being there for that and being like, damn, like that's history. That was amazing. But I joke with you about like love watching you play because you could just go and do anything. I used to love when Murph would call timeouts, and he called timeout like another game, and he'd bring them together, and he would get everyone in, and he's yelling and stuff, and you just kind of be walking across like no problem. He probably called timeout to yell at you, and you just like you walked in, you're like, I'm good, man. Don't and you would sit down, and like he would like yell at you, and you were just like, yeah, we're good, coach, we're good. And more times than not, you were good. He was crazy, but you were good. Yeah. So I do remember that. I always remember PJ with that. So
can I bring up a moment?
Yeah,
real quick. And you might have to hold me back for this one, P. I ain't gonna lie. When I was at Woodlands, my senior year, Dobbs Ferry, especially in B, this is when Eric is really, he's a sophomore at this point.
Okay.
This is when he's starting to arrive, giving everybody 20, 30, dunking all over the place. And they were undefeated. So it was time for them to play us. And we was doing well too at the time. I think we was like 8-3 at the time. So we were top of the league. And they asked for your prediction. And you said, yeah, Dobbs, I don't see anyone in Class B beating Dobbs Ferry. And I remember I was so mad in the locker room, right? Reese Williams, shout out Reese. Reese was our conscious guy. The rest of us were wild. Reese was the conscious guy, and he was even mad. So when I knew Reese was mad, and I said, oh, me and Reese are on the same page? All right, cool. We go into and it was at Dobbsbury.
Yeah.
We're in the layup line. We see you walk in the gym. We was like, I told everybody in the back of the locker room, I said, yo, Kev Devaney is here. It's time to turn up.
Yeah.
We went out, we beat Dobbsbury by 20. You were leaving by the end of the third quarter, right?
Yeah. I sense you were mad.
You were walking out the door, and we all started, bye, Kev. See you later, Kev.
God. I don't remember that. I'm Irish, man. I remember all that crap. I probably happened. Yeah. I totally believe it. But here's the thing, like, I never take that stuff like personally, because like, first off, I know you guys are like high school kids at the time. So like, I never take it personally. And I was like, I say to people all the time, it's better to be known for like, not known for something, but like, it's better to be known like they care. They care what you say and what you think. And I said this at the beginning. I take that as a big responsibility. Big responsibility to not like half-ass it or like or go out and not know what I'm talking about, or go into a game broadcast and be like, nah, I'll just learn these players when I look at the roster. Like, no, you gotta go in and like, you gotta take this seriously. Like I never at any point felt like I wasn't taking what I do seriously. Because if I did, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it anymore. I always felt like you owe it to these people. Like, you owe it to the kids on these teams and the coaches and the parents. Because this is like, for most of them, they only got 1 year, 2 years playing high school basketball. So you gotta give them like something that they remember. I've gone to my daughter's parent-teacher conference 2 years ago. We walked in and the teacher, Miss Meany, who was very nice, but her name was Miss Meany, and she says, "Oh, I don't know if you remember me." That's usually a bad way to start it. If someone says, "No, I remember me," I either like it was a college drunken night or something. So I was like, I don't remember, I don't remember you at all. But so my wife's like, she like puts her hands in my hand, like, what is this woman gonna say? And she goes, my son played for Valhalla. So she played it, and I was like, oh. I said, and I remember her son. Mike Meany. I was like, yeah. I said, you guys were great. You won the section that year. It was great. You went to the state quarterfinals. You lost. She's looking at me. I'm like, this woman wants to say something really bad. I can just tell. She goes, yeah, you followed us, but you never thought we were going to win. Ooh. And I was like, damn, burn from Miss Meany. And so
how do you feel about making, bold predictions and things like that? And let's just say it doesn't go your way.
I don't care. So I very, very rarely make a prediction that I don't believe. So some people that are just like, predict something that's going to get people talking. I don't do that. I feel like, you got to have some integrity with it. Sure. When all things are equal, I kind of say like, I don't know who's going to win this game. So I might just pick them because I always pick the other team or something like that. But I never deliberately try and be wrong to try and like get a rise out of people. But so I just know that stuff matters. There was a period where I stopped doing it. And then I realized that like people stopped like caring or like knowing who I was like, well, I got to go back to doing this because this matters to people.
It's a good point because he has a Knicks jersey, but he said the Knicks.
No, I'm a Knicks fan. What y'all talking about? I've always believed the New York Knicks.
The Knicks was gonna lose, and he won the Knicks jersey.
No, so I take it all very seriously. I take everything I do seriously. So I feel like I've got a reputation to kind of uphold. No one's keeping score when you're right. They only remind you when you're wrong, which is fine. Sure.
So kind of transition into the local live. Like, what made you start local live, and when did you start it?
So we started. So I didn't actually like build the camera, right? So there's a camera on the wall at school gyms all over. There was a camera on the wall that was that schools could get, and we'd stream everything that goes on, right? So I met this guy named Nelson Santos, who says to me, he goes, MSG Varsity just closed down, and we were doing live streams there, but doing like one a day for the entire tri-state, 2 a day maybe. And I was like, we need to do like 2 a day at every school. Like, how are we going to do this? And he comes to me, he goes, I built this camera. He's like, it could be controlled remotely, and you can do unlimited games. And I'm like, this is genius. And I was like, now what do I do? Like, and he goes, well, I need someone to help me. I said, well, what do you need help with? He goes, I don't know anybody at any schools. So I was like, oh, so 18 years of being around high school basketball, high school sports, like it matters. Like I know parents and athletes and coaches and administrators, I can call people. So the first call I made, the guy, I said, well, what schools do you need help with? He goes, do you know anyone at Stepanak? And I was like, I could find someone. Meanwhile, I covered first game I ever covered. And like a month before, or 2 weeks before, was the RJ Davis Lehigh game, the timeout game. So I was like, I was just covering Stepanak. I was just overnight in a hotel with all these parents and the administrators. So I'm like, I'll call them. And it's funny because I had to prove to this guy, Nelson, that I could sell the service. But I had to make it seem like it was not that easy to do. So then he would always need me to do it. So I told Pat Massaroni, I was like, Pat, I know you want to do this, because I explained to him ahead of time, but just pretend like you're not sure, and then I'm going to convince you that you want local live. He's like, okay, no problem. So during the whole meeting.
Hold on, does Nelson?
Yeah.
Does he know this?
Yeah, he knows. So yeah. No. Well, I made Nelson a lot of money over time. So Nelson knows me a little.
I hold you down.
So we go, and I'm like, so I'm having the meeting, and Pat's looking at me, basically saying like, when can I say yes? And I'm like, now. You say yes now. He goes, all right, we'll do it. We'll do local live. So they were the first school that signed on local live.
What's that? That's 2018.
2018. So it was right before COVID.
Yep.
And then I said, well, I'm going to call other schools. I called Leona Prep. I called all these other schools, and then we grew it to be huge. Yeah. Now, the thing that I joked about in the beginning was something that not many people know. Nobody really knows yet, which is, as of 3 weeks ago, we sold Local Live.
Oh, wow.
So Local Live got sold to NBC Sports. Wow, we sold the business.
That's so NBC?
NBC Sports.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Breaking news.
Yeah, that's a classic.
So the dream is you build a company, you sell it for $100 million. Right. We did not sell it for $100 million. I would not walk in with old. So I was like, so they came to us and they said, we love what you're doing, but there's really no value in the company itself. There's only value in like one thing. And I'm like, what is it? And they're like, you. Me.
Oh,
wow.
They're like, you're the one we've recognized as the one who holds all these relationships. And now everybody who works at Local Live is valuable, but without the relationship with the schools, with Stepanak, it doesn't go anywhere. So they said, we really wanna buy the company, but what we really want is for you to join on. Yeah. So I was like, I don't know if I want to. And that was just negotiating. Because I was like, I'm never gonna have a chance in my life again. Yeah, right. So I was just like, I don't know if I want to. I think I'm gonna go buy a farm and raise chickens. I don't know. I'm gonna do something else. So they said, what's it gonna take? And I kind of worked, and not just money, but like freedom to stay here, still go to basketball games, still go to football games, be who I am as a reporter, broadcaster, everything, and then also be the guy who kind of works and creates and takes Local Live from a very, very small startup and puts it inside of a big company and grows it bigger.
Yeah, so that's the plan, to touch different states. And
Yeah. So we're in a lot of states now, but not as many as we could be. And a lot of our limits were that we didn't have the money to grow. Like, so NBC Sports has money they want to put in and grow the company.
So Stepanak gets like a certain deal where it's like, now we should be on TV.
Yeah. So now you're negotiating.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
That's good. That's good. I'm
working the phone.
So they
I need parts.
So they want to grow, and they kind of want me to lead it in a lot of ways. So it's
Congrats,
great.
That's
so
big.
It's a dream to, as I said, get that check for a big amount of money. But I'm gonna say this, and I truly mean it. Like, I don't really care about being rich, like super rich. Like, I would never want to have all that $1 million because, like, I don't know, it's a lot of stuff. I'd rather be kind of someone who builds something and grows it, and people are just like, great job.
And enjoy what you're doing.
Enjoy what I'm doing. Like the quality of life.
More problems.
And so I'm not gonna turn it down.
So
it's not what I dream about. Like, I dream about this, like going into a bigger place and doing what I'm doing.
I mean, you can tell just by how long you've been doing it for. Sure. Like, no one does a job for this long, like you said, and it doesn't make $1 billion, but enjoy it every single day, then that's worth more.
I had very dark hair when we first started. Now I don't.
And I think it's just a testament to like your character and your love for like high school sports. So definitely shout out to you for that. And another question I have for you as well is like watching so much high school sports and being so involved in it. Like I said to start off the episode, you're a father of 3. Yeah. So you have your kids growing now, and eventually it's gonna be high school players. Yeah. And I seen going through your Instagram sidebar, I seen you raising some killers over some big. Because I seen the picture on your Instagram. It's like, at first just scrolling fast, I thought it was your son. It's your daughter, like nose bleeding, but smiling in the picture. And I'm like, okay,
she might be somebody else's kid. Right. She's so tough. Right. She's so like, and it's funny because I have 3. Right. And I have her, who's like aggressive girl which if you're a girl and you're aggressive, like you are instantly better at anything, any sport than any other girl. Because most girls are just not naturally like that. Because I have another one at home who's not naturally aggressive. She's just like, she likes the uniform and the socks and being on the team and winning and the handshake and sitting on the bench and laughing. She's just like, she's talent, but my other one's got like this like killer mindset. And she also wants to like really work. Like she walked in here, she would love this place. Like she would love this because this is what she wants to be.
with Dave Boykins.
Yes.
Shout out Life to
Life to
Hoops.
So she like loves it, and my other one loves other things, which is great. And then I have a son. So with all the stuff that I've learned over the years, and you think to yourself like, you're not going to be a crazy parent. I don't think I'm a crazy parent. I like to film. All their stuff because I film their stuff, but I also film their friends' stuff. So like all their friends like go on my daughter's. I have a YouTube page for her because I need someplace to store it all and share it. So I'm like, let me just put this together in like a semi-professional way, and all these other parents share it out with their family and stuff. So my advice to my own kids is like, so my daughter is good. We live in Armonk, Byram Hills. She's good for basketball in our town. Really good, really, really good. That doesn't mean anything when you leave our town, right? So she went to Atlantic City a few weeks ago and played AAU down in Atlantic City. And she learned what real, good national level basketball is. And she got her butt kicked. And I said to her, the same reason I tell you don't get overconfident at home, don't let your confidence get too down here because these are the best. This is the best. You're not going to grow up and be one of them. It's okay. Like it's totally okay. So my thing is, I'm going to tell my kids, we don't think about playing in college. We don't talk about playing in college. You don't dream of playing in college. Just have a good high school experience. Enjoy it. Because college becomes a job. College becomes very narrow on where you can go. Like I don't like this idea that if you want to play somewhere, all the colleges in the country or the world, you're only limited to the ones that want you. Yeah. Like I hate that. Like don't let your life be dictated by that. Yeah. So I'm gonna tell them that like I have a friend whose daughter just scored her 100th goal in lacrosse. She's a senior, had the greatest experience, the greatest time, and she's gonna go to University of Florida to be a student. And I'm like, sign me up today because she's gonna have all this great experience. Like it shouldn't be about. I think it takes away from the experience of high school if you think too much about college. Absolutely. Now there's plenty of kids, unfortunately, who's like that's their means to go to college, and I understand that. Yeah. But my thing is don't be consumed by playing in college.
And just to tie that like how we talked about the generation before and now, it's like that's everyone's goal, right? Is
every
college,
parent's goal,
right? Every parent's goal.
Yeah.
When we were growing up, middle school, high school, like you didn't really start thinking about college until either you get a letter or you get to your junior, senior year. 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, all you're thinking about is just playing basketball, having fun, playing with your friends. And that's what we, always harp on is like the joy of just being, playing, but not even being a basketball player, but playing basketball is gone. And I think that's what needs to come back. It's just like, just go out and play, have fun.
Just have fun, man. That's like what it is. I see parents on the sideline. Like my daughter plays flag football, and I see the parents, and I'm thinking to myself, like, first off, there is no college for flag football. So what are you even getting crazy about? There's barely high school flag football. So why are you getting so crazy? You're yelling, or you're talking to your kid, or they're talking about the game on the way to the parking lot. I'm like, why? Like, why are you taking this away? I'm so like desensitized to high school sports, like pressure, the county center. I still get very excited when I go, but like to me, I get excited because I'm just excited that these kids are gonna have this experience. Yeah. They're gonna get to play in a goal ball game and be in that floor and be in that gym. That's awesome. They're gonna go to the dome and play for the football station. Yeah. Like that's a great experience. Like I wish every kid had that experience, but that's all it is. It's just an experience, like for most of them. Absolutely. And if you're special and you can play in college, that's great. It'll happen. My truth is, there's not one parent who I truly believe made their kid a college player, unless there's something I missed. But like it's usually genetics and God kind of touched you and said you're going to be the one who's you're destined for this. It's hard to be an elite player. No parent makes their kid that way.
But that's funny that you say that because as far as the pressure is concerned, because you talk about the county center and things like that, especially from your point of view. Mm-hmm. But, it's funny because as players, when we would be, going to those big games and things like that, we felt all the pressure in the world. And now that you said that, when you desensitize them, it makes us feel now as an adult, dang, why did we feel so much pressure back then? Because whenever we would see the MSG varsity trucks roll up, things like that.
It was adults that did it to you.
It was, you know.
That's who did it. It wasn't kids, it wasn't each other, it was adults that did it to you.
And then some of them didn't know no better. They was like, oh, ESPN is here? You know, they didn't know no better.
I know.
And then now we're like, you know, and you know, our hearts would start pumping. You know, it's all adrenaline, you know, but it's just like those moments, you know, we lived for those moments.
I can't tell you how many times I go up to like kids before a big game and I sense they're nervous and try and calm them down. I'm like, listen, and like I usually say like it's kind of the same thing. Like, you deserve to be here. Like, you earned it. You deserve to be here. Like, it's no different. Like, just, you know, go play your game. Like, and I'm feeling myself, I'm like, why am I telling them this? Like, because adults on the other side telling them, you got to win this. This is the biggest game, biggest moment of your life. Don't build it up. I learned so much as like, I play golf, right? As I play in tournaments. And I thought to myself, man, if all these kids are going out and performing in front of all these people, I should be able to play golf in front of nobody and do okay. You know, and like, so I learned, it's like, I had so much respect. Like when players like you guys would go into games and play great in big moments, like it says a lot. Like, I kind of take away those experiences more than just someone who had just great talent. It's more like if you could do it in clutch and do it in big games, do it at Mount Vernon, do it at the county center, things like that.
And then real quick, just because we didn't touch on it too much, and I definitely want to give it a shout out, bring some light to it, Game Day One. Yeah. Let's talk about that platform. Let's talk about maybe some of your, like, what's your goals with Game Day One? We spoke a little bit about Local Live, but with Game Day One, I see that's like a little more like, seems like your baby a little bit.
It is, like, it's something that I totally own myself with a partner, my friend, my partner Ryan. And really what it is media, like, and God bless Loha, they're trying their hardest, but they don't have the resources to do much, you know. They do a lot of Stepanak, but they don't do a lot of Woodlands. Right. They don't do a lot of, they try, but they don't, when I worked there, we had a staff of like 25 people. They have 4 now. So I said, okay, how do I keep giving exposure to high school sports, high school athletes in a way where it's not like a second job, right? It's what I want to do, it's what I love to do. And I kind of tie everything into Local Live, right? Try and tie everything into all the streaming, all the stuff that I do, broadcasts, try and make it about that, because I'm sort of like you asked, like what's the future of it? And I'm sort of like just now developing what I think it really can be. And what I think it can be is a school-funded platform that's really run by students, which is what MSG Varsity was supposed to be back in the day. It wasn't school-funded, but it was funded by a cable company. But they wanted students to create content.
This is what I was going to add to that. For MSG Varsity, they used to have the call-in right before the game. So you either go to the office and you'll go on the radio, or you'll call in before a game. I know we had a call in my senior year. I forgot who we played. But they called me when I was on the way home to like talk on the radio about the game tomorrow. So that's dope. And I think that's what's needed, especially now in the social media era. I think if MSG Varsity was now, it would like blow up because of all the social media.
It would. It came at the wrong time. So kind of trying to make Game Day One like that. But the thing is, schools have so many students that are not participating in sports that want to be involved in sports. Absolutely. Guys probably like myself when I was in school. And they're so much better at creating content and understanding what good content is and doing interviews and posting photos and graphics and stuff that like they're better at than I am. And so I'm not, I'm going to give them on-the-job training in terms of broadcasting and maybe but I'm going to let them try and create themselves, because I'm not going to pretend that I know more than they do about what gets engagement, what students like. Because I look at my own kids and what they look, I'm like, why do they like this? Like, what is this YouTube like, I don't understand it, but I'm not going to pretend that I am. I'm an old man, so I'm just going to kind of follow the lead of the youth, because I've always done that.
And I think that leads into the, I feel like what could be the last question of the pod, and we talking about the youth and you trying to make Game Day One, which I feel like you will make it, what your vision is, and for the kids leading it. What's some advice you have for maybe a kid that's in high school, maybe looking at newspapers or looking at tweets and stuff, and is like,
wants to be the next Kevin Devaney.
Right.
Yeah.
What's some advice you got?
I tell them, first thing is you need to find your voice in like whatever you do, right? So that was something that I fortunately feel like I found early on. Like I could write an article and people would say to me like, I know your articles. I didn't have to have your name on. I would know when you wrote something because you write in a certain way. And I was always like simplistic. I tried to be like, someone said, write nuts and bolts. And I'm like, oh, it kind of makes sense, like nuts and bolts. So, and then the guy at the newspaper who told me the first article, just say what you saw and tell the story the way you can. That's number one. And then the other thing is do as much as you can. Like, I talk to a lot of high school and college kids who just want to broadcast, or they just want to, be a TV reporter. And I say, no, you got to learn. You need to learn how to shoot video, edit video, learn sound, learn engineering, learn lighting, everything. Like, you need to know how to do everything, because you might be a one-man show at some point. And if you can only be the person in front of the camera, then you're not going to go very far. So those are the main things. And then the other thing is, you got to really stick with it. I said to you guys before the show about this. This is awesome, right? This is a great forum. It's a great dialogue. It's great conversation. You're going to grow over time. And unfortunately, so many people start out early. And I started this Instagram account. I only had 50, 100 followers, so I shut it down. I'm like, you need to be patient. Patience is everything, because it's going to be one break, and then the audience doubles, and then it grows, and then it keeps going.
Yes, sir. That's great advice, man. We needed that. We needed that.
Keep going, basically.
We ask for advice for the youth, but I think that goes for the youth, all age groups. Is just be persistent, keep going, stay consistent. And I think that's the perfect way to end it, man.
Yeah.
So I want to say, appreciate you for coming by.
Appreciate you guys.
Definitely good seeing you, as always.
Thank you.
I told you, I watched this one time. I was like, this is great. I enjoyed this.
So definitely on the closeout, we appreciate y'all. This is Westchester Talks. We want to give a huge shout out to Life Through Hoop. Shout out to Dave Boinkins for providing us the gym. If you need any trainings, make sure you tap in with him. We'll put his information in the bio if you need to reach him. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. Check us out on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, on all the platforms. And yeah, that's Westchester Talks. It's Kevin Devaney Jr. And we out of here.
Sir.
Dude, that was great. Good? You enjoy it?
That was good.
Too long?
Great. No, it's perfect.
Thanks.